from the Oyster Cellar in beautiful, springtimey, daffodil-covered downtown Seattle. It's The Dinnernet with Mark and Meg, the only podcast that remembers what Scott Carlsberg did.
Our guest today is Skip Tognetti, founder and co-owner of Letterpress Distilling, which specializes in Italian liqueurs, including their signature Limoncello, Amaro Amarino, Genziana Fernanda, Nocino, and more. Skip, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so much more.
So much more, it's true.
Multitudes.
How are you doing? Are you reacclimated to the time zone here?
Yeah. Just barely.
Wait, where were you?
I was in Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah, heard of it.
And other parts of Denmark for about 10, 11 days. My wife was there on a business trip, and I just tagged along.
Tagged along. That's a
Dreamy.
good
It
gig.
was great. Yeah.
How's the weather in Copenhagen?
Very much like here.
Yeah,
Almost
similar.
identical. Yeah.
The last time I was there, it just felt like Ballard. The whole city felt like Ballard, yeah. All the little blonde coffee
Accurate.
shops and, and bike dudes.
So much good food. My God.
Yeah. What's the best thing you ate in Copenhagen?
Pizza, actually.
Really?
It's one of
Really?
the best. And pastries. It's one of the best pizza cities I've ever been to. And
Really?
Oh, that's fascinating.
An Italian said that.
Yeah, well, it's mostly made by Italians who then went to work at Noma and nerded out on fermentation for several years, and then decided I'm just gonna make the best pizza I can possibly make.
Wow, that's the spot.
Yeah.
Rad. How was your week, Meg?
Oh, it's all right.
Was it?
I'm
Was
covered,
it really?
I'm covered in paint today because I decided to paint one of my stairs in my house just to see how I liked it. And so I'm covered actually in primer. That's what I did. Cut a bunch of my hair off because I'm a grunge kid who still cuts her own hair.
Love it.
And I don't know, I took my mom out to lunch at a bad mom restaurant, which I'll talk about later.
That's sweet.
She liked it. So, it's for someone, just not for me.
Parents have a very specific sort of taste.
Mom really liked all the fake plants at this restaurant. Those are her priorities.
I feel that, yeah.
How about you, Mark? How are you
Oh
doing?
my God, my week was so busy. I thought it was going to be chill. When we wrapped the podcast last week, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great week. I only have one deadline on Friday, and I could just edit the podcast, do my day job, and everything's going to be great. And then I got 2 rush assignments that were both due on Friday, which I didn't have to accept, but I accepted them because...
But you did, and then you felt sorry.
Yeah, I just really overdid it on the workahol last week, I think.
You can't get enough workahol.
So it was just a scramble constantly, but
Yeah.
it's good to be in a new week, and maybe this week will be more chill.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm excited about our guest today. I have talked to Skip online. You and Skip know each other, but
Well,
we just DM. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Skip just from Instagram, and then also just stopping by the distillery and chatting.
Mark stopped by several times, and we often just end up sitting and chatting for a while, especially
Nice.
if it's a little quiet on that day or whatever.
That's a good-
engage other customers sometimes.
Good
too.
organic friendship, right?
Yeah. I mean, your palate and the way that you develop liqueurs is very much aligned with the way that I like Italian liqueurs to be. I mean, it's always exciting to taste stuff at your place.
Yeah.
Your place is in SoDo?
SoDo,
Yeah.
right by the next door to the Bemis building. My driveway that runs parallel to the Bemis building.
Sort of tucked away in the stadium.
Stadium district.
It's a hidden gem, everyone.
People love those. If you have a hidden gem,
I feel like hidden gem is now synonymous with is in business.
hidden gem is synonymous with speakeasy. Everything's a
Oh
speakeasy.
my God,
also.
so much. Yeah.
Are you a speakeasy also?
I am not. I'm very much not a speakeasy.
Doesn't sound like you're very hidden either.
No, well, a little bit hidden.
You're in
Often people are
public.
coming back. They're like,
Yeah.
"Am I going to a distillery, or am I coming back here to get murdered?" Because it's weird. It's this gravel driveway that you have to walk to the end of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in that warehousey kind of area just south of the stadiums, just where it's still kind of like, oh, that's an old building. That's kind of rickety and
So I have never
vibey.
been, despite being invited many times. And I'm trying to think of how I would explain what you make without ever having tasted any of. Oh no, I've tasted Amaro Amarino for sure.
Right.
All over the place. So Skip makes that.
Yep.
And you make a couple different limoncellos, yeah?
Well, I make a limoncello. We make a blood orange version of that, which we started doing as a super limited seasonal thing, in 2015. And a few years later, people just kept asking for it. So we're like, let's just make enough to, it's still seasonal. Blood oranges are seasonal, but let's make enough to have it all year round.
Okay.
We do a very limited kind of every once in a while limoncello, so grapefruit, which is super fun. The Amarino, the Amarino Reserva. We do a wine-based gentian liqueur, and a Nocino.
And you do a Nocino
Wow, that's a lot.
as well.
Yeah. And you've been at it for a long time. You were founded in 2012.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. We released our first bottle on December 15th of 2012. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild. That is so OG for the city in terms
I know,
of
that's
like,
old for Seattle, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Everybody got here in 2015, right?
Yeah. So what inspired you to start making Amaro?
That's a good. So I kind of grew up around these things. A little background. So my mom's born and raised in Rome, and I spent a lot of childhood summers there. We actually moved there for a very brief time when I was little, and her whole side of the family still lives there. My grandparents did when they were alive, still lived in kind of the heart of Rome. My grandfather, after whom Amarino is named, so his name was Amarino Pinti.
Okay.
He kind of introduced me to these things. He had a liquor store like right in the center of Rome.
Oh,
it's like a
amazing.
little neighborhood liquor store, and I used to kind of hang out there sometimes when my parents were, they wanted to go do something fun. We would hang out, and so I thought it would be appropriate to name the Amaro after him. I thought it made a great Amaro name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that it translates to bitter little love.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun. So yeah.
So you're not from Rome, though. You grew up here.
I grew up in California.
Okay.
Sorry about that. And I moved here. It's sort of, I love the serendipity of the fact that I moved here on my 18th birthday.
Really?
I moved to the state of Washington on my 18th birthday to go to college, and have lived here basically to the day my entire adult life.
Okay.
Yeah.
That counts. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I always find it funny when some 25-year-old be like, well, you didn't grow up here.
Yeah,
but
like
I've
I've been
lived
here
here
a
longer
long-
than you've been alive.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally valid. How did you learn to make Amaro?
I taught myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a little more of my background. Like, so one of my degrees is in art. I like to make stuff. And when I like something a lot, I like to learn how to, or figure out how to make it. And that started with just wanting to make booze. Like, I didn't open the distillery to be exclusively an Italian liqueur producer. I actually opened it. I was one of the first, as you kind of mentioned, like one of the first handful of distilleries in the state. And I thought I was going to be making whiskey and gin. And, but if you read my business plan, I always had like this, I was like, oh, and also I'm going to be making some Italian liqueurs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought like the first would support the second. Released that Limoncello in April of 2013, and it just sort of took over the business. And I thought, this is kind of what I want to do. And as more distilleries were opening, everybody was making whiskey and everybody was making gin. And I thought, well, here's a way, especially as we're very, very small as we were, to kind of differentiate ourselves. So,
Is there a story behind the name Letterpress?
yeah, so that goes back to me being an art student. I did a lot of, so printmaking was kind of my focus. I did some bookmaking. I did a lot of letterpress printing. And as I was trying to come up with a name for the distillery, it's funny, in retrospect, had I known I was going to be doing Italian liqueurs exclusively, I probably would have picked a different name.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, I picked up a thing I had printed one day. Like, I was going through an old box, and I kind of did the thing you do when you pick up something hand printed. There's this real tactile experience where you're like, oh, I can tell somebody like made this by hand.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, wouldn't that be what I want people to get from the things that I make for them to consume? And so, yeah. And I really love type. And so I thought I could really focus on like type forward label design. So, yeah.
Do you still print?
No.
And you don't have a
No,
press?
my creative outlet is making booze and cooking at home. Yeah.
You print booze.
I print
Yeah.
booze. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it.
I was very surprised to learn that Limoncello is your signature product, because I came to Letterpress from, Amaro Amarino. Like, it was an Amaro I'd seen at every bar and tried
Yeah.
and liked.
I would argue that it's not my signature product, though.
Yeah.
It is the oldest. It was the first
Yeah.
one that we did, and then I spent about 3 years working on the Amaro. Once I decided I wanted to do it early, and then it took me a little while to get around, because I was running a business, to get around to actually working on the recipe. And I'm a very slow recipe developer, and so I just spent a long time working on it. So it came later, but in terms of like what we're known for, et cetera, like it's probably equal with the Limoncello. It's probably surpassed the Limoncello at this point.
Yeah, that's my perception of it anyway. Yeah.
Limoncello's got some really good national press. Well, they both kind of have, not like we're getting written about every other week, but like that's sort of the things that have drawn some attention for us.
Yeah.
Do you want to get written about every other week?
No.
We know how to make that happen for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the limoncello is great because it's not artificially colored at
Correct.
all. You sweeten it with local honey.
Yeah.
Really?
And
Yeah.
that's
I'm embarrassed that I'm learning so much about our guest, like the last second.
So my name is Skip.
Who are you? Where am I?
Yeah, so I did when I started to do it. I've been working on the recipe for a long time, kind of just making it at home. And honey was a relatively common sweetener in Italy because honey was in the trees. It didn't grow, but it was in the trees, right? Like it was available. Refined cane sugar would have been maybe at some point much harder to come by or more expensive coming from farther away.
It was free.
Yeah, and so honey wasn't an uncommon sweetener, and I love honey. It's kind of crazy down the line. Like it's much harder to work with. It's obviously a much more expensive ingredient, but it really provides some complexity. Honey and lemon. Maybe you've seen those together before.
They're out on the town sometimes.
But there is a challenge always making sure that the honey it doesn't become dominant. So that's something that we have to be select the honey that we use. We use Northwest honey. It's clover honey. We originally used blackberry honey, but it turns out the whole Northwest runs out of blackberry honey most years. So we couldn't really make that unfortunately, we couldn't make that our honey.
Where do you source your honey from?
We get it from out of Eugene.
Okay.
We get it from Glory Bee.
Okay, sure.
They're
They're
Eugene
great.
sort of family owned.
Yeah.
Nice. They're pretty big, but they can supply us.
Are there bars locally where I can get some of the limoncello like in a cocktail? Obviously, I'm going to go to your distillery and try that in the tasting room. But in
I'm
general,
freeze. Yes.
Okay, probably seems likely.
Yeah. I mean, there are places all over the place that are using it. And we were talking about this a little before. Like menus change so much. Like I don't always necessarily know. Like, it was on there last month. Now it's not on there, or vice versa. So
I'll just start asking for it by name.
Yeah, that's right.
My new favorite thing that I've never tried. It sounds up my alley though.
Yeah. It's the limoncello Megs ask for by name.
Yeah, but it was really important to me too. Also, so I get the question a lot. People will be like, "Well, it doesn't look like these other limoncellos that are like this bright highlighter yellow color." It's like, well, this is the color we get. So
I've always wondered about that because it's weird that they are that bright. That's exactly the way to describe it. Usually, the limoncello that you see is neon yellow, and I'm always
it is.
But why is it artificial? Why does it?
Generally, it's yellow number 5.
Really?
Not always.
Okay.
But often, if you look at a lot of the sort of
Caravelli,
yeah. So some of the mass-produced, they'll have yellow number 5 in them, and it's because they're making so much of it, and they're trying to. And also, I think they're just trying to. Bright yellow is really attractive.
It's not to me, and I bet it's not to many people who were learning about limoncello and then being really put off by the shade of it. So yours is not.
No,
another
it's not.
Vote in your corner.
Yeah, it's also clear and not cloudy.
Okay.
And that is actually doesn't really have that doesn't indicate quality one way or another, but it does throw people off a little bit.
It's just a fun fact about you.
Just a fun
That's
fact.
just who you are.
That was
Clear, not cloudy.
Well, that was maybe my next limoncello question was, is there a difference between the sort of milky looking limoncello and the more clear kind?
There is. I don't want to get super technical about it, but it comes down to a lot of times, well, I guess it does talk to how I think about doing things. So a lot of times what's happening there is what's called lushing, that process where absinthe or ouzo, you add water to it and certain compounds come out of solution as the proof drops. So generally when you see a cloudy citrus spirit of some kind, what's happened is they've infused that citrus at a very high proof. So then when they proof it down and add sweetener to it, that lushing process happens. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And generally people do super high proof because the thought is the higher the proof we do, the more we will extract from the lemons. And that is true. I have found that most of what you're extracting at the very high proof is not stuff you necessarily want. So I'll have astringent compounds and things that you then have to sort of counterbalance with extra sweetener or, whatever it is. And so my philosophy has always been, what's not the highest proof I can infuse at, but what's the lowest proof I can get away with infusing so that I'm getting all the citrus oils and maybe not some of the other things I don't want.
Yeah.
Or that I'll have to correct for. Yeah.
Sure. I have a semantic question about Amaro for you.
Sure.
So how do you personally say the plural of Amaro? Because to me, it feels like one of the most no-win situations in language right now.
It is. It's a story of my life, honestly. So, no, I mean, as a kid who grew up, I actually don't speak fluent Italian. I did when I was a kid, and or as much as you can speak something fluently when you're 4. But I know how to pronounce Italian. I understand sort of the basic grammar rules, and so I speak in that way. And so this has happened to me my whole life, going to Italian restaurants and like ordering a thing, but not wanting to sound like that over-pronouncing person.
Right.
And so then I end up just like mumbling and pointing at the menu.
Yeah.
Like you don't speak any language.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Just,
Right.
And so the plural of Amaro is Amari.
Yeah.
Plural of ravioli, or the singular of ravioli is raviolo. Like, and so I do it without thinking about it, and then I think in my head, like, I wonder if that person knows why I said it that way. And then I'll also, what I find interesting is then this very particular word that people can't figure out, where I'll see like, we are such and such an Amari bar. And I'll think, well, you don't call yourself a sandwiches shop.
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like, so it sounds weird to my ear, but I know what they're doing. And so like, I'm not going to be weird about it.
Yeah.
Like, I always think of King of the Hill, where Peggy Hill will say Mexico. Like she's still saying it wrong. So
Yeah.
she's an asshole either way. Like that's how I feel when I want to use the correct word for something.
Yeah, because
I don't want to pull a Peggy Hill.
that's what I mean about the no-win situation of it,
Yeah.
because a lot of people say Amaros, and that to me comes across, like if you know that the plural is Amari, it comes across like calling records vinyls or something.
Right.
Sure. Well, I feel like if you're speaking too much on the subject of Amaro, the person you're speaking to knows what the word
Yeah,
Amaro
a little
means.
bit, yeah.
I have to do this obviously every weekend in the tasting room, and when I'm out and about, and I just do it. I just say Amari. It comes out of, for me, it comes naturally, and so
I think they're wrong, and you need to convert them.
Exactly.
How are they going to learn?
How are they going to learn? Exactly.
Can we talk about Nocino for a minute? 'Cause,
Oh, yes, please.
we were chatting a little bit about the show, and you used a phrase that was captivating to me, which is the New World Nocino.
New World Nocino.
The concept of the New World Nocino.
Yeah. So Nocino is a thing, for listeners who don't know what Nocino is. It is an Italian liqueur made by infusing walnuts, but you pick those walnuts when they are underripe. So when they're still green, you really got to pull them off the tree. So usually in this area around early July. Traditionally, it had been a solstice thing, actually.
Okay.
And so New World Nocino. So yeah, a lot of people have discovered Nocino. It's like a relatively easy thing to make at home, or the bartenders can make like on their back bar. And I love it. And
So do you make it in a different style, the New World version versus the Old World style?
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if what I do is an Old World style. I just have, this kind of goes back to like getting the thing I was talking about with proof. I try to keep things really simple. Like, and this I think is informed by just growing up around, in a family, a Roman family. So I don't know if we covered this, but my whole family still lives in Rome except for my mother on that side. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the only one who came over.
I see.
When she came over, she married my father.
Got it.
So I just grew up with a lot of very simple cooking, like, 3 or 4 ingredients, matriciana, that sort of thing. Like just get good ingredients and treat them well and try to stay out of the way a little bit. And so I think about my Nocino that way. So I see a lot of like New World Nocino, which I find very delicious. I want to make that clear, but really like pushing more heavily the baking spice, the warm sort of holiday, because by its nature, because it's seasonal, by the time you're done making it, it's right around the holidays. It's sort of this intensely dark. So I should mention that if you haven't had Nocino, I say it's green walnuts, you think it would be light colored. It oxidizes into this intensely brown, like Coca-Cola brown color.
It looks like it would have coffee in it or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so people really go for that sort of baking spice holiday thing. And I really just think that the walnuts are so interesting and complex by themselves, especially when they're not quite ripe. So they're still really super tannic. They're a little nutty. They're a little vegetal and herbal and all those things. And so like that's already providing my complexity. So rather than me trying to like put a stamp on it, like let it be good and figure out what you can highlight. So the only thing in our Nocino is the walnuts. And then I add a little bit of Seville orange to give it a bright note, not unlike when you make a cocktail, use like an orange peel garnish to give you some brightness. And then we sweeten it with light brown sugar because there was some natural like kind of chocolate and molasses notes in there. And I wanted to just give those some depth.
So you're not like other Nocino producers in that you're saying other people add things like clove or nutmeg or things like that.
Vanilla, those sorts of things.
Okay.
Like you'll find cinnamon.
And I've got several of those, and I drink them.
Yeah.
They're good.
It's not that they're bad. It's just not what you.
It's not what I was wanting to do. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nuttiness of Nocino is so luxurious if you can get that forward.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I have some of the Nocino from 8 Row that David Nichols made.
Oh, yeah.
When they were closing down, they were just selling the little bottles, and I put it on ice cream the other day, and it was very
Delicious.
That one's very
Delicious.
good.
Yep.
A little more of the baking spice in that one, but so
Yeah.
good still.
good. And they make it themselves, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Skip, aside from your own products, what are some of your favorite Italian Amari and local Amari as well?
Well, we're lucky in Seattle. We have several really good local Amaro
We sure
producers.
do.
So Sensafina, I know you guys have talked about them on the podcast before. They're great and lovely people. They make very different styles from what we do, and they do 5 of them. And so I think they're great. So others that I like. So High Side out on Bainbridge Island is doing really cool stuff. We use some of theirs, and both Sensafina and High Side, we use some in our cocktails in the tasting room. Fast Penny doing the Amaro Americano up in
just on the other side of the bridge.
Like
Inner
Lower
Bay,
Queen Anne.
Nickerson.
Yeah. They're so we've got like Brovo up in Woodinville's been doing things for a while.
Yeah.
So, we've got this really, like a lot of people doing not only good Amaro, but like really varied styles.
Totally.
So we've even done events together, and it makes perfect sense because like no 2 of the, 8 or 10 products are alike. Right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of Venn intersection between what you're doing and what Sensafina is doing. Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely.
And you've done, I don't want to say like mashups or pop-ups, but you've done events together.
Group events.
Events.
Like local, like Seattle Amaro events. And we've done one, and it was very successful, and I would like, we should talk about doing more.
The Amaro Elite. Yeah. Well, if they're listening, we'll tag them.
Yeah. What are your favorite Italian ones?
Oh, man. There are so many. So Lucano is one that I love a lot. In fact, it was one that Amarino, my grandfather, it was his favorite. I learned recently when I was on this trip, my last trip to Italy goes back to pre-pandemic. So my Fernanda, after whom the Genciana is named, her husband is from down south, very close to where Lucano is made. So it's like kind of cola-like, and it's got like a little bit of smokiness to it. It's delicious, and it was my grandfather's favorite. But this is how hyper-regional Amaro was at the time. He couldn't even get it in Rome. And so Vito, Fernando's husband, would drive it up for him to like carry in his store. It was one of the few places in Rome you could buy Lucano at the time. And so I've loved it. I love Cynar. I drink absurd numbers of Negronis, or I've gone through phases in my life. So I have a soft spot for Campari.
Yeah,
I tried one at Dark Room a while ago called Centerbe.
Centerbe, 100 herbs.
Yeah, that one. Is it Italian or is it? I know they drove it up from San Francisco. Or they imported it from San Francisco.
So the Centerbe is. My understanding is it's not so much a brand as it is a style. I could be wrong about that. So
I liked it. I thought it was interesting.
If I can, we can just edit that out.
It's got 100 herbs in it.
I'll fact check
it. In the way that like a carciofo would be a style. So carciofo is artichoke, and so Cynar is one of those. But there are many. There's rucola, which is made with arugula. There's all kinds of rabarbaro.
So it's a category.
Which is made with rhubarb. I love a lot of. So zucca is another like. I like a lot of the rabarbaro Amaris.
Yeah, those are great.
I just said Amaris.
Disgusting.
It's
embarrassing.
Your fault. Honestly, it's your fault because I started to say it and then I was like, well, which one am I saying?
I just recently learned that the plural of Amaro is Amari, so actually that's wrong.
My favorite fact is that there's the word cooper, right, means a barrel maker, right, often for distilled spirits.
Where are you going with this?
Well, there's an NFL player named Amari Cooper.
Oh, amazing. You think I could get him to maybe
be your mascot?
Yeah, for our like barrel aged tomorrow.
Yeah, he comes from a long line of Amari makers.
What
evidently.
team is he on? Like, where is he geographically?
I don't think he plays anymore.
Yeah, I think he might be on like one of those 1-year veteran contracts somewhere.
He was with the Giants. Why are we talking about this?
He makes Amari. This is why we edit out, right? I bet the people want to hear this banter.
They might. It's the most podcasty part of the episode so far.
This is where I choose to like cough and like open my LaCroix and do loud things.
Welcome to Sports Radio, Mark and Meg.
Welcome to Sports Radio. The Pulse.
I don't know anything about sports.
We're not going to talk about sports.
Okay.
In fact, we're going to talk about the news, I think. Meg, are you ready?
I'm ready to open my LaCroix into the microphone, if that's what you mean. As I've done the last 2 weeks.
It is our new band.
Sounds like Tangerine LaCroix. Yeah, so I was at Winco yesterday. I don't know, y'all motherfuckers know about Winco.
Oh, yeah.
Winco is owned by the employees and everything's dirt cheap. But also they have what they have. Like, they have a lot of bulk foods. They have a lot of very cheap avocados. We were looking for like Boursin. They don't fucking have that shit. You know, like it's kind of Costco-y.
Yeah, that's the
It's
impression
kind of
I have.
industrial, but everything is very cheap. So in the bulk goods area, I made a little mini reel about this last night.
I saw that.
They had, all these chocolates and candies that you could buy in bulk. And they had these yellow things. I didn't know what they were because they didn't have a label on them. And so I decided to just get them and make you guys eat them.
It's exactly the kind
I
of
might
mystery.
also eat one. I will say Stephen was like, they're obviously yogurt-covered almonds. And I'm like, they are yellow. Why are they yellow? Like, yogurt is not yellow in my mind unless you leave it out for a long time, unless it becomes cheese, right?
I feel like there's a Murphy's Law of declarative statements like that. The second you say, without complete knowledge, just, this is obviously that, it is not going to be that.
I don't know what
So
they are.
I think I know what these are.
Oh, yeah. So Skip thinks he knows.
Okay.
And if he's right,
What does he
it's
get?
on topic.
Yeah,
He gets
like,
one.
The most on topic serendipitous
But if he's wrong,
unlabeled candy purchase ever.
we'll be embarrassed for him. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
They are ovoid, right?
Do you think the move with these is to like suck on them first a little bit, or just like bite in?
I don't know. I thought that they might
guess
be
we'll find out.
eggnog.
Ooh, I hope not.
All right, we're going to find out.
Okay,
They're lemon.
this is a journey.
They're lemon almonds.
I think these are limoncello covered.
Really?
Yeah, limoncello. Like, so
Bias.
I have been gifted
I think you're
things
right.
that look exactly like this several
Okay.
times because I make limoncello. It turns out.
Do you?
Yeah.
So
And I think that's what those are. I'm like 90% sure.
That was totally unrelated.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Wild.
say that I agree with you, and I also agree with Stephen. I think there's a yogurt element at play here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like lemon bar flavored
Yeah.
almonds.
Yeah.
But if you say they are marketed as limoncello almonds, I believe
I'm
you.
pretty
Yeah, there's a creaminess to it that I like. I thought I
Oh, let's have
wasn't.
another one.
I thought I wasn't gonna like these, but yeah, I kind of want another.
So Mark likes them. Well, you can get them at Winco for $3 a pound.
The the almonds Marks ask for by name.
They're not bad.
No, they aren't.
They're not bad.
We had
They're
another.
like white chocolate covered, but
Yeah.
it's lemon white chocolate.
Yeah.
What was that other lemon flavored thing we had a couple weeks ago? These are way better than that
The
lemon flavor.
Botan rice candy that
Yeah.
supposedly had yuzu in it or something.
Yeah, those were a drag. These are the best thing we've tasted
Those
so
were a
far.
drag.
Oh yeah,
We had banana cookies. I was like, what was the yellow thing? But it wasn't
Yeah.
lemon, it was banana.
I was editing that episode, and there was a moment where I think Nico was talking about how it tasted like banana Laffy Taffy. And I think at that point I was like looking at the notes to like see like where should we go next in the episode.
Yeah.
And you guys were all like, oh yeah, banana Laffy Taffy is great. And I was like, oh my God, how did I let that pass? Because that's so wrong.
You allowed us to say.
But like I feel like there should have been like both sides of that issue.
Why? Because you didn't think it tasted like banana Laffy Taffy, or because you hate banana
Because
Laffy
banana Laffy Taffy is like one of the worst flavors on earth.
Artificial
Taffy? I
banana.
was just
in
joking. I
general.
was just like
Yeah.
notes of Laffy Taffy. Banana joke,
Yeah.
right? But then Nico agreed with me.
Yeah, but I love that Nico like came out with that. Like that was great. I
They were
wanted
down
that
with
kind
it.
of that's the kind of hot take we want on the internet.
Down with Laffy Taffy. All right.
All
Well,
right.
I won't pull out my substitute treat. We'll save it for next week.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, we'll see that for next
Unless
week.
you guys want to try it.
I mean, kind of like Chekhov's treat, you know.
We'll do it next week.
All right. Well, let's actually get into the news. I think the first thing is you, Meg.
News. So there is a little teeny. So I grew up on Queen Anne. I'm a Queen Anne kid.
Yeah.
It's like being a Toys R Us kid.
I was just gonna say that.
More embarrassing. People think you're rich when you're not. Wasn't expensive back then.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is true. That's a
It
problem.
got rich. My dad drove a city bus. So anyway,
Yeah.
Queen Anne kid, and I got a PR release that said that something called Tom's Watch Bar has opened in the Uptown neighborhood, which is also known as Lower Queen Anne. And I looked at it on the map, and it's like the tiniest building in the world. It's like a little hut next to what I knew as the Northwest Pottery Studio
Oh yeah.
on First North at like Thomas.
Yeah.
Little teeny tiny, like how can there be a bar in there? It's like a public bathroom. But they opened, and it's a sports bar, the world's tiniest apparently, and they are playing all sports all the time. The space spans
All
over.
of them at once.
So
You know what? I'm reading the press release more closely. They mean the Pottery Studio. The
So-
pin on the map was this little hut.
oh.
They mean the whole thing because it says spanning over 24,000 square feet. I'm like, how can that be possible?
Okay, so it's not tiny; it's large.
It's large.
Okay.
It's Tom's large watch bar. That makes way more sense.
Yeah, Tom's large watch bar.
It's the largest watch. That's like a mansion, a 24,000 square foot. That's even funnier.
This is a journey of discovery. So when they say they're playing all sports, do they like? Are they going to be playing like
every
literally?
Sport?
We're going to see like Seawolves rugby. We're going to see. Or did it say?
I hope so.
Yeah, hurling
it features
from Ireland.
stadium-sized viewing screens complemented by hundreds of high-definition displays. Hundreds.
Wow, that is a far cry
It's the
from a pottery
opposite
studio.
of what I thought was going to happen.
It is the opposite. Well, I was very intrigued by like potentially the smallest sports
I'm
bar.
like, you could put like 5 people in there. How the fuck are they going to?
Yeah.
Oh. So it's a sports bar mansion.
Yeah.
On Lower Queen Anne. Now I kind of want to go. I don't give a single shit about sports. And I kind of want to go over there now.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious.
I'm curious.
Wow,
All right,
wild.
Tom's Watch Bar.
Okay.
Check it out. Don't be fooled by the tiny hut next door. Don't be fooled by Google Maps, I was. That's the news. I got fooled.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Second, this has been covered in basically every outlet at this point, but Shoda Nakajima has decided to close Taku. And kind of hinted that he might be leaving Seattle in the post, but I think an ensuing interview with Bethany Jean Clement from the Seattle Times sort of put that to rest a little bit. Although, free will, he can decide whatever he wants, right? Maybe he'll leave. I don't know. But I think it's kind of an interesting piece of news just in terms of kind of what he said about it. He was kind of talking about how he felt spread thin with sort of all his kind of outside endeavors, and as the sole owner of that space was kind of feeling like he wasn't doing service to the concept.
Yeah.
And what show is he on right now or coming up on? I think is it something like Top Chef?
One of them.
Something.
Yeah.
One of the shows.
One of the shows. That's kind of, he's got a little bit of like a celebrity element to him in a bit. And we were kind of talking about that with Edgar D'Souza when he was on. This kind of the, like, where are we at with the chef as the star thing? And it seems like maybe he's reckoning with that himself just a little bit, which I think is pretty fascinating.
He's been on a million shows.
Yeah.
He's been on Beat Bobby Flay. He's been on Top Chef Portland. He's been on Bobby's Triple Threat. He's been on Iron Chef Gauntlet. He's been all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And, of course, Taku is sort of a fried chicken place. And we were kind of talking about the idea of market correction with fried chicken because we've been chock-a-block with fried chicken the last several years. But that's not the kind of place I want to go away.
That's not to say his fried chicken is bad or that any fried chicken is bad, just that we are drowning in it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wonder if he also wants, I got a sense from maybe a post I saw somewhere that maybe he wants to get back into sort of where he came from, the sort of finer dining kind of thing. Yeah,
because he did revive Naka for a few days as a pop-up.
Yeah, maybe that's where I got that
from.
from.
He was working with Luke Colpin on that. I think maybe has an upcoming thing with Luke as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think I read that too.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
All right.
Let's see, what else?
Bagels.
Yeah, so Monica Demas has sold Westman's Bagels. And on her Instagram, she posted, after 7+ years, I'm stepping away as the owner of Westman's Bagels. I'm excited to see what the new owners, you'll meet them soon, will bring to Westman's, and I know they will continue to evolve and build on these lovely neighborhood spots. So Westman's isn't going away. It's just that Monica is stepping away from that business. She went on to say, I made the choice to move on after I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2023.
Oh, no.
So yeah, that would
that'll do it.
That would make running a bagel shop pretty
you
rough.
can't even breathe the flour if you have celiac.
I mean, it's all in the air and whatnot. So she says, for now, find me working on a couple of new projects coming to Capitol Hill in the very near future, and continuing to mom it up with my amazing kiddos, which is very cute.
Have you had those bagels?
I have not.
I haven't either.
Actually.
Have you, Skip?
I have not. No.
It's located in the former Little Uncle's space on
Right.
Capitol Hill, off Madison. And then the other one is in the U District, in that sort of plaza space where Baka Bak used to be, where Pizza Ragazzi used to be.
Pizza Ragazzi, yeah, exactly.
The worst pizza place on earth. That was like maybe the worst pizza I've ever had.
What's the one on Greenwood that has the gluten-free crust? That is the worst pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Da Vinci's Alberona has very bad
my
pizza.
God.
Remember when we were walking down Larry at like 3 a.m. once and we're like, we're hungry. Let's eat here.
I will never forget that. That
we
was
just got
so
wings.
funny.
Holy shit, that was bad. We didn't know each other very well back then. We were like, I think we were at last call or something.
Oh, it would have been before last. Well, I guess maybe not. Maybe that was like the
It was
first
a couple of years ago.
No, we were
this
friends
summer.
at that time. We were good friends.
We were friends, but
Yeah.
like,
That was the
I
moment you
feel
bonded.
like we became
Maybe.
good friends
Yeah.
when we both had to eat those wings
Yeah.
at Da
Trauma
Vinci's
bonded.
Albarona, or is it the other way
Yeah.
around?
I don't know.
At the old Hopi's Tiki
Yeah.
Teriyaki Hut. Remember?
Boy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like the second episode we've like actually called a place out, kind of. Like,
It's okay.
what
You
is
can add.
the heel turn here.
Everyone knows that's the worst
I
food
know,
in
it's
the
true.
city. And they know it too. Like, they don't care.
Yeah, they're just like, we're open.
They
what are you
know
gonna
that
do?
about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are open.
Yeah, I guess we're not really
hot
we're not
and
really-
ready.
We're not really throwing anyone under their bus here. It's
It is
fine.
not news to them that they serve bad food. They
Yeah.
know that. That last news item, they don't open till the 20th, so you probably don't want to do it. The guy keeps getting it punted.
Oh, I see.
The Orfeh, Mirabelle by Orfeh.
Yeah.
He tried to import a bunch of French flour and got hung up in customs, so
Oh, right.
they had to bump the opening date. for
Was
that.
that Harry reported out on that and Eater?
Harry and Naomi both reported it.
Got it. Okay.
Although
yeah.
Naomi refers to Harry saying it got hung up in customs, so we can do that
What
next
is this
week.
place?
Sure.
It's called Mirabelle by Orfeh, and the guy's name is Orfeh Foano or something like that. And he's French. He's like 29, and he's worked in all these Michelin star places, and he's doing like Parisian style bakery bistro in Pioneer Square.
Yeah,
but
that's interesting.
He can't open because he doesn't have his French flour.
That's rough.
Yeah,
That's a
is
tough
he gonna get
situation.
tariffed?
I have thoughts about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear him.
Yeah.
This is all getting cut out, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably
No,
leave it.
I just really have. I think a lot about how that idea of like importing an ingredient from a place no longer makes the food about the place it's being made.
Yeah.
And so, and like, I get lemons from California. So like, what does that mean?
They don't grow here.
They do not grow here. But, sometimes like, especially I think with flowers and like we get our honey locally or whatever, like I just, you can do cool stuff. Like one of the pizza places I went to in Copenhagen, they, make their cheese from cows down the road. They don't have the Vera Pizza Napolitana thing because they're like, because we can make cheese from cows down the road.
Yeah.
It's going to be better than,
It is interesting that a French guy moves to the U.S. and insists on only using French flour.
Well,
It's
that exact thing is why Lupo doesn't have the certification, because they thought, like, why would we import Italian flour when we've got great local flour in Cane Springs Mills and whatnot? So, I don't know. That might be a good plan B for this guy if the customs.
he wants to be super, super Parisian. That's his thing. That's a shtick.
Yeah.
And if that sells,
That's his
great.
thing.
And you can be like, this flour that you're eating is from France. It's real French flour. If people get off on that and that helps you sell things,
Yeah.
I guess that's
For sure.
good.
Yeah, I mean, it's still valid.
Fair
Yeah.
fucks
That's
to
interesting.
him.
Fair fucks
Fair
to him.
fucks to Orfeh. That's the name of the podcast.
Might be.
All
All
right.
right.
Round table.
Roundtable time, yeah. So, Skip, we were kind of talking before this about just the different challenges that have cropped up in the booze industry and sort of align with some of the challenges of the bar industry. But of course, it's different because you don't have the service element. Like, what are some of those challenges that you're wrestling with right now?
Probably the most like current and topical thing, of course, everybody's talking about tariffs. We went through tariffs the first time Trump was elected. And, one of the things is like everything gets affected. So the cost of our glass goes up, and the thing is, even if you're getting your glass from a domestic supplier, like they're also often increasing their prices because now they can.
Right.
Right. So, and then what happens? So, often our glass will go up, which is one of our bigger costs, will go up by like, 25, 30, 40%. That's a lot of money per bottle. And we have a hard time raising prices. So, and then they never come down.
Right.
Right.
That's
It's
the
not
thing.
like it's
That's
going to
the
go
thing.
back.
Yeah. They realize you've gotten used to paying that price and they're just going to keep charging it. Maybe it went up 40% and they're like, it comes down 8% or
And
something.
their expenses have gone up too, so they
Right,
can't
of
afford to
course.
lower it.
Right. There's also that.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a challenge for everybody. And of course, smaller suppliers, smaller producers like us, we don't have economies of scale. We're buying glass 2-3 pallets at a time instead of, I used to buy glasses partial pallets if I could get them, instead of containers of them or multiple containers of them. And so also, we get hit with it a little bit harder. So that's kind of, I think, one of the challenges we're my business partner and I have been talking about. And
So I was talking to Corbeau and DMs just about this threat of the tariffs. Have they been instated yet?
Well, so they haven't affected us yet. Whether they've been stated, I haven't I don't know.
It's just a looming threat
it is
of more
definitely
tariffs on
looming, and-
imported liquors, on wines specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's going to be the tariffs on actual finished product. And then there's often tariffs on things that are, for us, it's more things that we use to make our products that are imported, like the glass, for instance, most of which comes from China. We work with an Italian company that's a glass producing company, but they have everything made in China now.
Okay.
So, yeah, we don't know. It's always like that's part of the fear is a little bit of the unknown. Yeah. And then the tariffs that are going to be on like finished wines and spirits and things, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Right. I was chatting. Corbo is a very wine-focused restaurant, like a bistro in Tacoma, and they said, this is going to ruin our industry, like just the fine dining restaurant industry, because they have a lot of French wines and Argentine wines and Spanish wines. But they also pointed out that even locally, even non-imported wines, like, as you say, things like glass or things that are imported in order to run a Washington State winery or California winery.
Aluminum for
the price of those things are going to go up, and then they're going to lay people off because they won't be able to pay as many employees, and then that's going to get decimated too. Yeah. I hope it doesn't happen. I see it's been threatened and then dialed back a couple times.
Yeah.
Like, is this guy just full of shit? We know he's full of shit.
I mean,
we know that part.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, he said, I'm going to do this, and
full of
this.
shit on this very specific thing.
And then changed his mind and was like, turns out I don't know how tariffs work.
Yeah. I think
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
I think it's going to depend on the people around him deciding that their business interests surpass their desire to be in good with him.
Yeah. Do billionaires like wine? I feel like they do.
You would imagine.
They're like, oh no, this affects me?
Yeah, that's
my wine collection?
That's what it takes, as ever.
Yeah.
God.
And then you also touched on the idea that people are drinking less.
Yeah, people are drinking less.
And that's a challenge.
There's a million studies out there.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear, like, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Good.
Sure.
I also am trying to drink less.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is that, in some ways, obviously it has effect on us, but, the types of products we've always made have been hopefully made to be the kinds of things that you're, sharing with friends and family, and like, maybe they're more hopefully special. And so, it's not, a lot of times you look at those numbers and they're aggregate numbers, and like, does that drinking less mean like we're drinking a lot less Bud Light? Or does it mean that, so I haven't seen enough breakdown of the categories, but I do know that in general, we've been growing slightly over the last few years, and I was always hoping like, oh, gosh, it'd be nice if we were growing a little more. But then I look at the industry going down by 8 to 12% or whatever, and I was like, oh, well, actually, that feels pretty good.
So you're grateful for your growth.
Yeah. So and one of the things I was looking at recently, which I find really, really interesting. I mean, often this becomes like this weird generational thing. Everything's a generational thing right now. Everything's the fault of one of the
Gen
generations.
Z doesn't drink specifically.
But I was looking at a statistic that I found really interesting, because obviously the NA category is growing really quickly. You've got things like Pathfinder, which is super awesome, and other NA products coming out.
A lot NA cocktails are
NA
really
cocktails.
popular.
Not every menu has an NA cocktail list now, which it should. So one thing I couldn't find it this morning, I was looking for it, but I ran across a few months ago, was that in this given study, 80% of the people who said that they drink an NA beverage on a given night also drink an alcoholic beverage.
Okay.
Yeah. So
really?
It's not necessarily that it's going down because everybody's quitting drinking. I think there's just being more thoughtful about their drinking. And so I go out and maybe I have a cocktail, and then I think, you know what, I'm going to have, instead of having like some water or a Coke, I'm going to have this nicely designed NA cocktail.
Yeah. You now have that option.
Right, and switch on and off. So I think I think that was really encouraging. And I do that. Like I love all the NA cocktails that are available these days.
And you also want to try it. Like even if you're not trying to drink less, you're like, what does that taste like? It sounds fascinating.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of places in town that have beautiful NA cocktails.
I've been seeing NA lists that rival the alcoholic cocktail list.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think a challenge, and something I've talked to some friends of mine who own bars and restaurants is figuring out what the price point of those things is going to be, because a lot of times in the customer's mind, the value is the alcohol.
Yeah.
And so if I'm paying $18 for a cocktail, I should only be paying $12 for an NA cocktail. But realistically, a lot of the ingredients that are going into the NA cocktails are the same ingredients. They're the same juices. It takes the same amount of labor.
Tinctures.
Yeah,
and
all kinds of
shrubs
things. And so
yeah.
Trying to also figure out like how to find the right price point where people are willing to pay for them,
Right.
and understand that this is really just as good as the other thing. It just doesn't have that one ingredient.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other economic factor too, I think, is that people don't session drink NA cocktails as
Right.
much.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Like you're not gonna like have 4 NA cocktails generally.
Yeah.
Right? Like I haven't never done that. Yeah, really. Like it's almost like 2 is the top. that I
Right.
would
That's a good
do.
point, because it would cost you $40 or $50 when you could be drinking sparkling water or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also just kind of a different drinking experience too. It's not so much about like, well, that's not going to get me drunk. I'm not going to drink it. It's more like the flavor and it's just satiating more.
You know, the other thing that I think is really interesting is the ready to drink cocktail in a can kind of thing. And I find that those have been generally not super successful with, you know, when I get like my canned margarita, it's just really kind of a shitty margarita often, right?
For sure.
But a
It's
lot of
not
these, they're
fresh.
doing like interesting spritzes, the Negroni riffs that are coming out that are non-alcoholic Negronis and things. So, and the interesting thing about that is that because they bring some sort of bitter or tannic or something component, that in some ways replaces that bite that that would be coming from the alcohol.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like you're just drinking a fancy soda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phony mezcal Negroni is so good.
Yeah. All the funny
And-
Negronis are great.
Yeah.
And I think it was so smart of them to carbonate them because it's light carbonation, but it does that thing that sort of gives you that little bite.
Yeah, a little snappy.
Yeah.
Thank you both for not saying the word mocktail, which I just said.
Yeah.
And once again, this is my opportunity to push the term foxtail, which is a faux cocktail, FYI.
I love it.
Rebranding mocktail because that's a stupid fucking word.
Yep.
Any other challenges that you want to mention?
I mean, there's so many. It's just, one of the things about having a small distillery that is a challenge that I didn't anticipate. Probably should have, but I didn't. When I was like writing my business plan or whatever, I thought of it like not unlike I did a lot of looking at like sort of what microbreweries when they had opened and what their business plans were, and a lot of people will say like, oh, the craft distilling industry is a lot like the craft brewing industry was 30 years ago or whatever. It's true in a lot of different ways, but one way it is not true is that in general, craft breweries are not competing with big breweries. Fundamentally, the thing that Budweiser makes is an inferior product generally to what a good craft brewery is making. They're just different things.
Yeah.
And they're for different audiences.
Different
and so forth.
target.
That's
Yeah.
not true in spirits. It's big whiskey distilleries in Scotland and Kentucky and whatever. They're Japan. They're making really good whiskey and they're making great gin and they're making great Amari and all those things. And so one of the challenges is we're competing with everybody, and that is a thing I wasn't ready for. And when I realized it, I was like, well, just keep making things as good as you can and. Find your audience.
Good philosophy.
Totally.
Shall we do Thanks I Ate
I think
It?
it's time for Thanks I Ate It. Yeah.
Skip, did you eat anything this week?
I didn't.
No,
No,
you're starving.
Just didn't even eat. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I did. So it's funny. I actually thought about this segment a lot when I was like, I
Okay.
should probably go. I need to go eat interesting things because I'm going to be on
Yeah.
the
I
podcast.
mean, you can plug stuff you ate weeks ago.
No, yeah.
They won't know.
Yeah, right. Well, I ate half of last week. I was in Copenhagen. I had great pizza and I had a lot of street hot dogs because that's a thing there.
The pulsar,
so
yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
They're so snappy and
yeah,
fatty.
and they're like just a snack. Like
Yeah.
they're not really a meal. There's like 6 bites or something.
Yeah.
And I had some great smobro, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Pickled herring, smobro,
Nice.
and a nice.
You can find those around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Freya, Cafe Freya?
Is that true?
No, because it's not there anymore. It was at the National Nordic Museum.
Oh, right.
They have the bakery in Pike Place, but they're not in the... Is that true?
I
Someone
thought-
should fact check me.
I'll fact check
I
you.
wrote
We'll
a-
see.
I wrote a story about Smørrebrød when I came back from Denmark last
Yeah.
time,
Oh,
but
nice.
that was 5 years ago, and I don't know
Sure.
what's still in existence.
Since I've gotten to town, what I find myself doing is going because this hasn't been covered, but I'm living part time on the East Coast right now.
Okay.
I'm sort
Yeah.
of coming back like half the time to help, to run my business. And my wife is living out there for work. So when I come back, I tend to just like go to my comfort places. Like I miss this place, or I want to see my friend who owns this place. And so some of the things I ate last week, I had the Wednesday only burger at the bar at Lorsan, which everybody should go get. It changes periodically, but it's also got some sort of like, it's a big, thick sort of restaurant style burger. Nice. It's got like caramelized onions and then usually some sort of like, funky French cheese. At one point they were doing a Juicy Lucy, where the cheese was like, oh, so good.
I wanted that so bad. It was called a Juice de Luce.
I love it.
And then I went and visited my friend Chris at Here Today. Actually, I think Mark came in right after I left.
Yes,
really?
I just missed you. He mentioned you were by, and
ships in the night.
And I got to tell you, the wings are so good there. One time I was there, and Chris was like, "You should try these. We do this homemade, like house-made chili crisp and maple. So they do a maple chili crisp wing that is just ridiculous." Okay. And I had been thinking about it. So I was like, I'm going to go and see if they still have it on the menu, and maybe also Chris will be there. And so that was delicious. I did try to go to a new place. I haven't been to Family Friend yet. And
great.
I went and I was like, maybe I can sneak in as a single person, even though it's like a busy time. And I could not. So I just went to Michoacan instead.
Nice. I love Michoacan.
Can't lose though on that strip.
Had a torta. I'm a complete. I love tortas so much.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind?
I got the carnitas.
I was gonna say you got to get the carnitas. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds great. They put the refried beans on the tortilla.
Yeah.
I went like this.
I will always like whenever I go to like a taco place, everybody gets tacos, and I always get the torta.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Ditto.
So when you're in town, you like to get pizza too, because it's hard to get good pizza in Boston, right?
I don't want to get in too much trouble here, but there are spots. There are, it's funny. People think, oh, it's on the East Coast, they must have great pizza.
I don't know. I went to Berklee College of Music for a summer, and I ate some real bad pizza in Back Bay, Boston.
Mainly what I'm
place called like Crazy Dough's, Dough.
I'm not sure that still exists.
It had like a weird like Dave Matthews Band logo, like a crazy guy. Looked like Wild Mike's Pizza, or something. It was fucking garbage.
Mainly what I'm trying to get at here is people often complain that they can't get good pizza in Seattle, and that is untrue.
That is not true
That is
at all.
like fundamentally untrue.
Yes.
It might have been true 15 years ago, not true now.
Yeah.
I said that last week about Mexican food.
Yeah, for sure.
Things change.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yeah, there's a lot of good pizza here, and there are spots there, but you really got to hunt them down. So, and the spots that are sort of the legacy, like been around 100 years, everybody. Santarpios, for instance, is
your smile just faded when you said Santarpios.
You'll see it on the YouTube video.
They might not let me back in Boston. It's okay. You guys have a big Boston listening contingent?
No,
I don't think so.
Not yet. We do now.
Yeah, we will. We're about to.
Oh, angry listen to us now.
Yeah, we're gonna get some hate clicks.
Seattle thinks they know what the fuck about pizza. Fuck you. Fuck me. Fuck you. That's my Boston impersonation.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Fuck you. That's how I impersonate people from Boston, Massachusetts.
So
my Boston Brahmin accent.
Boston Brahmin. I love it. Yeah, what did you eat, Meg?
I took my mom to a bad restaurant yesterday, and she loved it. And so I want to point this out because, it's a chain restaurant. It's called Moctezuma's, and there's a few of them. We thought it would be like Azteca, which my mother loves.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I can fuck with Azteca. It's family owned. You can get by. It's okay.
They use lard in their refried beans at Azteca. That's legit.
Moctezuma is also family owned, and I think they have 3 or 4 locations. And it was just not nice. My mom loved all the fake plants. She thought it was beautiful. It's mom food, right? She got a giant salad that was mostly arugula with carne asada, steak slices, and some tortilla twists. And I think avocado. It was just a giant bowl of arugula, and she loved it. She was happy. My nephew came with us, and he got a taco and a tamal, and I got the birria chilaquiles, and they were like, "What is that?" My family was like, "What is that? What are you doing? You're eating wet chips." It was not nice.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about me. It was about taking mom out of her retirement community, and she's like, "You broke me out of the joint. Let's go somewhere." And we went on a drive, and she loved it. And we sat in the little sunroom, and there was,
I feel like
star-shaped lighting fixtures. So
I feel like sometimes it's just a matter of perspective when you go to it. So I love cheesy, saucy, Americanized Mexican food. When I think of it as what it is, it's just the same way I love. I grew up in eating Roman food made by Romans, and But I love like a red sauce American Italian joint. Like I just think of them as sort of like, these are two different experiences and I want them at different times.
French cheese and American cheese.
Absolutely.
It was flavorless, like the red sauce that was on the chilaquiles had no flavor at all. But like, again, it's not for me. It's for mom.
Right.
So moms love Moctezumas and I'll leave it at that.
The Mexican restaurant moms ask for by name.
I also went to a place that my dad would have loved. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, but I thought of him. We went to Single Shot up on the hill, and I'd never been there, and they've been there for like 10 years, and it was very simple food, cooked beautifully.
Yeah.
Like, Stephen was like, this is some normal-ass food, but it is so delicious. And then he's like, don't say that on the podcast, that's normal-ass food. And I'm like, I don't think that that's an insult because it just wasn't complicated food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we know what all the ingredients are, right? And I thought of my dad. Like, we got a pork chop, and the pork chop was served with 2 ribs, sort of TP'd on the outside. I will eat my hat if it was not pure country. Yeah, I just know that sort of bouncy, like, marbled pork squishiness. Like, it's just got so much extra fat, like, built into the meat. It was like a mochi, right?
Yeah.
And it was on a bed of, like, Bosque pear puree and like a marsala reduction and celeriac and something else.
Sounds wonderful.
It was wonderful. And I was like, my dad knows all of these items, right? But he would be like, wow, a pork chop with pear instead of applesauce. Like, you would have been delighted,
Sure.
Simple meat and potatoes food. We got a very good focaccia that came with black garlic butter, like a compound butter. And it was incredible. And we did take our finger and the focaccia had tons of olive oil and it had capers baked into the top, little bits of roasted garlic.
Great.
Beautiful, beautiful food. Cocktails were great. They will pull you an espresso shot at 8 p.m. out of their weird, like, vertical, like, Metropolis, the movie looking tank silver espresso machine. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's very futuristic if it's 1932 looking thing. Have you been there?
Well, I haven't been there, but I've seen that machine. And in fact, that was the very machine I was referring to last episode when we were talking about what that one unnamed terrible bar didn't have.
Okay.
Right? When they were trying to charge $10 for a latte.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, it doesn't have the manual hand crank machine. That's it.
Single Shot has
That's
it.
the one. Yeah. So if Single Shot wants to charge $10 for a latte, I'm all for that because you got to learn some expertise to use that machine well.
We got the espresso shot after the meal, and it came with a little seltzer on the side, which I love. I just had a lovely time. Nice. I highly recommend Single Shot.
Yeah, I feel like the beauty of Single Shot is that it's right in the heart of Capitol Hill, but it feels like a little secret neighborhood joint.
I felt like we were traveling. Yeah.
Little pocket.
Summit and Mercer, I think.
Yeah,
next to the Top Pot Donuts.
Next to that Top Pot and the old Soul. Yeah, it used to be Sun Liquor. Yeah.
Exactly.
Soul Liquor Lounge is fantastic, by the way. Like that's I think an overlooked spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's hard to say that anywhere in Capitol Hill is truly overlooked, but in terms of people talking about it, I think it's a great bar.
Oh, we also got the agnolotti that had the Calabrian chili on it, and just like a pool of cheesy, creamy, like melted butter, and it was long ravioli. I thought of my dad. I'm like, my dad would be like, "Wow, this ravioli's long. How about that?" Like, he knows what it is. He'd love it, right? So.
Me and Calabrian chili.
I did think of you. I did think of you. Oh, and also there were good vegetarian dishes. There was a huge roasted cauliflower on tahini with romesco, and it was elaborate and beautiful.
Yeah, that's a great combination.
Single Shot, baby.
Yeah.
And then Jackie Veriano came down to Tacoma, and we traveled the streets of Edison City. And I don't want to say all the places that we went because she's going to write about it for several times.
Yeah.
We did hit Howdy Bagel, which I think is a gimme.
You got to do it.
She loved it. So.
Still am unable to do that. I got to do it.
I will let you read Jackie's story probably this week in Seattle Times about where we went in Edison City.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I invoked this earlier, No Call, No Show, which is a pop-up that Matt Packmeyer and friends do over at Bad Bishop. Mm-hmm. I think bi-weekly is the twice a month. And this time they do a different thing every time, and this one was blended drinks. That was the theme. They brought a blender out like total psychos, and we're making fancy blended cocktails. I had a blended coconut Sazerac.
Oh, nice.
And it was fantastic. But the other thing about No Call, No Show that is unbelievably great is they always have a fantastic liquor selection, and it's priced very well.
Very reasonably, yeah.
Nice.
Like I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but I had a pour of D'Artigolone 1995 Armagnac. It was $15.
Sounds right.
Pour.
Wow.
And it was delicious and fantastic. And I've been wanting to get into Armagnac and brandy because I don't know much about it at all.
Okay.
So No Call, No Show is a great way to get into any kind of spirit. They don't always have like a crazy selection of Armagnac. They don't always have like a crazy selection of whatever spirit. It just changes every time.
It's a liquor school. It's educational.
A little bit, yeah. And then the food I had there was from Chef Alicia Davis. She was back and doing some Korean bangers. I got a gochujang glazed Korean fried chicken that was like served cut up, kind of like katsu style, over a brown butter fried rice. Ooh. And it was fantastic. I mean, the other thing about No Call, No Show is it's like a major industry party. You know, like I showed up there later than I normally do because I was working on editing and just taking a break for dinner. And I couldn't get to the chicken for about 30 minutes because I was just like chatting with different people.
All your friends.
And it was fun. And when I finally took a bite, it was like still crisp because it's that Korean fried chicken way of just like being so perfect.
I thought you were going to say like English bangers, like Korean bangers.
Yes.
That sounds kind of good.
I have used that joke in writing before where like I think I was talking about the Georgian Dragons karaoke and I was like, eat bangers, sing bangers.
Oh, I love it. That's at Bad Bishop. No Call, No Show.
No Call, No Show is at Bad Bishop. Yeah.
My buddy Liz Knapke, who is the exec director at Walla Walla Wine Alliance, she was in town for Taste Washington and she was like, I found this great bar called Bad Bishop.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, like good taste. Way to find that one. She's like, I was proud that I found
place.
this great spot. Yeah.
I also went over to Revelry Room in West Seattle.
They're so good.
Yeah, it really is.
One of my favorite bars. I put that on the Seattle Met bar guide.
Yeah.
I love that spot.
That was the one I added to the cocktail map.
Perfect.
Because there was no representation for West Seattle at all on that map. And I was like, well, if I'm going to just pick one bar, then it makes sense to represent an unrepresented area.
Yeah.
But like that was also a no-brainer just in general because their cocktail game is so good and it's so interesting. Like
that's my neighborhood, and I do think I think people have figured out quite that they're there yet, but they all seem like moderately busy, and everything there is so good.
Yeah. I've never not had.
And
a
they're right next
time.
to Lady J, so like you've got like basically the two best cocktail programs in West Seattle, right next to each other. Yeah,
for sure. And so if you don't know Revelry Room, it's in the alley behind Easy Street and directly behind Jet City Labs, which I think they're connected with.
Yeah, I think so.
And the drink I wanted to try there was called Blueberry Yum Yum. And it is Baobab African Classic Gin.
Okay, it's not my religion.
So it's got the Ghanaian baobab.
Yeah, it's the Marula gin.
Yeah.
They have it at
Karoo Cafe has that
Cafe
too.
has it.
Yeah. So they're doing that with Moxie Mule Rosso Vermouth, and
Beautiful.
I love Moxie Mule's vermouth.
we use Moxie Mule in our white Negroni at the tasting room. I love what they're doing.
Yeah.
Sean's super good guy.
Johnny Reyes called out Sean Perryman as well the other day when I interviewed him.
Yeah, he's really great. Like, you should get him on.
That's also what Johnny said.
Yeah.
He's a delight.
Yeah, we absolutely will. The final ingredients are blueberry, tarragon, lemon, Flores bitters, and cream cheese.
What?
And so I wanted to know cream cheese, like how is that going to work? And it turns out it does work very well.
Okay.
The thing was, it wasn't very photographable though. Like, as you might imagine, like they did incorporate it very well. It wasn't like you're getting chunks or anything, but in the glass, there were kind of like speckles you could see. So I was like, shoot, I can't use this in the article. I better order another drink. And so I ordered the Mr. Big Stuff, which is right up my alley because it's a Scotch-based drink. And it includes peated Scotch and then Boon Boona coffee-infused Vecchio Amaro del Capo.
Oh, nice.
That's one of my favorite Italian Amaros.
It's also, so I didn't bring that up when we were talking about my favorite. It's okay. I still love you.
Rude. That was rude of you.
It's also one of my favorites. And sometimes people will be like, well, which Italian Amaro is yours most like? And I think like that's probably the closest. Not exactly like, but I think they would they function the same way.
I think it is worth pointing out also that Revelry Room is black owned and a lot of the liqueurs you're talking about are black owned.
Yes, right.
Moxie
So Moxie Mule, for instance.
Boon Boona as well.
Yeah, Boon Boona, of course.
Yeah. And I just learned something about myself in that I just blurted out Amaros. I wouldn't have thought that I would use that term.
It's from hanging out with Skip. He taught you that word.
No. I want to be using Amari. That's from hanging out with Skip. Anyway, there was also amaretto and tobacco bitters, and it was garnished with a smoked cinnamon stick.
Killer.
So
wow.
These are all flavors that I absolutely want in a drink, and it just kind of like knocked me off my rocker. Like I loved it so much. It was just like unbelievably smooth drink. It had some like mystique to it especially from that tobacco bitters.
Yeah.
Do you think we could make a cocktail based on these limoncello almonds?
Absolutely.
With yogurt and
I think we can make
letterpress limoncello
That's right.
and some sort of almond liqueur.
Is there a type of Nocino that's made
Orgeat.
from almonds?
Oh, yeah, right.
Orgeat.
Oh yeah, orgeat, of course.
Somebody needs to make these
The best.
Winco almonds.
I will tell you my favorite
cocktail.
limoncello cocktail. Can't believe I didn't think of this earlier. That someone's using our limoncello in is at the doctor's office, which I know we all love.
Of course.
And Keith came up with it's basically a lemon tart.
Yeah.
Where the limoncello and there's a little acid adjustment. So it looks like this is a bright yellow cocktail. The crazy thing is there's a little whipped cream on top.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that it also has the flavor of pastry in it.
Okay.
And which he does by burning brioche and then blending that with the vodka that goes into the drink so that you get this like pastry flavor.
Genius.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Keith Waldbauer, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Total genius.
Amazing. You eating anything else?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about what Parker is doing at Oyster Cellar because
Where's Oyster Cellar?
I know it's right where we're at.
It's all around us.
I feel like I mainly talk about the food there, but he has a drink called Fair Game that I really wanted to try, and it is salted caramel applejack with Basque cider, rhubarb, lemon, and soda.
Oh.
And it is, so you hear salted caramel and you think, oh, is that going to be too sweet? It is not. It kind of has the dry, bitter savoriness of caramel and like a touch of sweetness. Like it definitely has a sweet element, but
And that Basque cider probably keeps it really dry.
yeah,
too.
it's a real complex fizzy drink. But the thing that really blew me away is he has this hot cold drink he's doing, and it is an amaretto sour where he's made a frozen incarnation of it. It's blended, pours it in the bottom of a coupe glass, and then tops that with a hot boozy custard foam.
Ooh.
And so what ends up
Hot
happening
boozy custard foam is a real poem.
I'm actually trying to figure out like how to describe that in a way that might sound a little bit more like enticing because it actually is incredibly enticing. Like when you get the sip of it, it sort of like is on your lips. You're like, oh, this is so delicious.
I think by telling people it's incredibly enticing, people will know it's enticing.
Yeah.
That'll do.
So the effect that happens is, of course, like a little bit of melting occurs, and you get this top layer that's hot, and a middle layer that's cold and sort of liquid, and then the bottom is, freezing and frozen and slushy. Yeah. It's almost like a textural temperature mind eraser.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Amazing.
I think he's going to be doing that on Saturdays.
Quickly before we wrap, I also went to Angry Beaver and ate the poutine with brisket and an egg, and it was like the most intense poutine of my life. And I could only eat like a quarter of it. That's not to say I wouldn't go there and eat it again. It was very good, but I would bring 3 other people with me to eat the poutine.
Yeah.
The brisket is really good.
Yeah. And I think we have like a hard cutoff, don't we?
I think we got to cut off. We got to wrap it up. I wrote about Johnny Raya's at Lennox this week. So read that. You got any plugs?
Just that cocktail map update published on Friday. It's not complicated, but it's new information on some of the stuff that was already on there. So it's worth reading.
Very good. Skip, you got anything going on? You're open?
We're open. Yeah, we just released our 11th edition of the Amarino Reserva. So our Amarino Reserva is where we take our regular Amaro. Before we sweeten it, we put it into used whiskey barrels. And every batch is a little different. So depending on what barrels we use, how long we leave them in. And this was a fun one because it was a Copperworks barrel that we originally, so we've never done one longer than I think before this, it was like 22 months. Usually they're closer to a year or so. Mm-hmm. And we got that one and was sitting and we got to 2 years. I thought, we should release it at 2 years. That would be kind of the longest we've ever done. It'd be fun. And then we got to 2 years and I had another one that I thought was ready. And I was like, well, fuck it. Let's do 3 years. So it's 3 years and 1 month. That was in a Copperworks American single malt whiskey barrel. Okay. It's really fun, a little spicier, a little less vanilla than some of our. This is a nice thing that Reserva sort of changes a little from batch to batch.
Great. That sounds fantastic. When is the tasting room
tasting
open?
room is open Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays noon to 6, Sundays noon to 4.
Cool.
Yeah. And that Reserva 11 is so fantastic. I tasted it this weekend, and the flavor is so unified, and it has a little bit of a heavier body. It's great.
Yeah, it's got a real spice punch to it. Like a really spicy spices really came through.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much, Skip Tognetti from Letterpress Distilling.
Thank you so much for
You were a
joining
great
us.
guest.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
We really enjoyed it. Next week we've got Lakia Osias
Cannot wait for that.
Pop-up chef who left the game and
Left the game.
got a different job, and we're going to chat with her about the ins and outs of popping up in Seattle as a chef.
Yeah.
That'll
Stay
do
tuned
it.
for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, God.